Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of X-Men 97 Episode 4, Motendo slash Life Death Part 1. This was again written by Bo DiMeo and Charlie Feldman and directed by Chase Connolly. Before we even jump into the episode, am I crazy or was that the MCU theme in like a 90s guitar riff playing during the Marvel animation opening? So that was insane. So that makes me wonder. They say that this isn't part of the MCU, but that's a little strange that they're playing that. So I really don't believe them when they say that. And that just makes my suspicions a little higher hearing that. Now, I love they always have these surprises. A lot of scenes redone from the original animated series put into the intro each week, and we get to see the original showdown Jubilee had with Mojo, and you get to see Longshot in the background. And I also like seeing Forge with the X Factor, and we got to see Emma Frost, which was awesome with the Hellfire Club. So they're really putting that extra effort to make the intros even exciting, which I love. Now, remember when the show opens, you gotta always remember the X-Men love their coffee, and I love they're really leaning into that this season. And Magneto is just magnetizing the spoons to put the right amount of sugar in Rogue's coffee in front of Gambit. What a boss move. But Magneto wants the X-Men to do drills in the Danger Room. He's like, they gotta be prepared if Mr. Sinister returns. But this is where Beast brings up that it's Jubilee's birthday. And Wolverine's like, I second the blue Rogaine ad. But Magneto is more concerned about her being ready against a world that hates who they are. And Morph has a great line. He's like, someone's daddy didn't get him a pony for his sweet 16. And that's when Magneto's like, my parents perished when I was a child. So that was just like a great comedic moment to have that counteract with that. That was so funny. But they do a nice thing here where it's a creative idea to have the story where it goes because Jubilee wants to go to the arcade. Remember when the show literally its first episode, we see Jubilee go to the arcade. She loves it. So, of course, she's going to do that on her birthday. And Rogue will say there'll be some surprises in store for her. That's why later Jubilee is not going to be suspicious of this Motendo system showing up in her room. Now, Magneto will groan at this. He is not going to go to an arcade. And Jubilee does a great imitation of Magneto. So shout out Holly Cho, the voice actor. I love they have a Bruce Lee poster in a room. I also love they have the Longshot doll. Remember the bond her and Longshot had, as we'd even seen him appear behind her in that great episode, originally in the animated series where they were together fighting Mojo. I also love that the game is an Easter egg that is in the Motendo system. It is an Easter egg of the Super Nintendo game X-Men Mutant Apocalypse. So really cool to see that. I played that game and I loved it. Now, when things get wild, you see it's Motendo, so you know Mojo's involved, who is my favorite X-Men villain. I love everything with the Mojo verse. And when they turn it on, the arms come out of the Motendo, strapping them in. There's just really cool animation of that happening to Jubilee here and her eyes going white. So it's pretty terrifying even thinking about her and Roberto when they're strapped to that bed in this game. Now, what was cool is when they're in the game, they're greeted by Sentinels right away, because of course. And I love how the Friends of Humanity are walking like they're in a video game. Now, Roberto is still scared to use his powers in the game in case his parents were to see it. This will get good payoff by the end of the episode where he risks this for Jubilee, which will really woo her over. Now they'll end up in Genosha, and you start seeing that Jubilee's going through her past memories. And this is from Slave Island episode of the original X-Men animated series when she was stuck with Storm there and a bunch of mutants that are slaves. And you see the Jubilees reflecting on that, and the guards start going after her and Roberto, but then a mysterious person helps them out and takes care of the guards. So that's this figure that's looming through the episode, and you're wondering, okay, who is this? What is going on? So I like that effect. But here comes my boy Mojo, shows up, and he imitates Jubilee saying totally. And he's like, just what I was hoping for. Classic Jubilee. So great. And he's an alien TV producer who feeds off the ratings. So that's why he shows first as really skinny. And Jubilee makes a comment on that. But you'll see as the episode goes on, he starts feeding off the ratings and get bigger and bigger. And he just looks terrifying skinny. He's already terrifying looking, but the skinny part was even scarier. And it's cool. He shows them when he had the X-Men trap. And he's like, to entertain my slaves, indentured audiences, sorry. Like, corrects himself. That was so funny. And he goes, it's been a horrible third quarter. Ratings are down. Why he pivoted to now video games. And he explains Jubilee's a star and every level is based off her memories, and that Dazzler was busy. And he's like, he'll dominate the galaxies in the 18 to 45 age demographic. That's what I love about Mojo, is a dialogue they can have fun with him. And he's like, I don't want to say something scary, but if you die in the game, you die in real life. And he goes, stakes. So always that scary thing about Mojo under it all, where it's all this bombastic Hollywood type things with him, but there's always a fear of dying. And then he shows what the old X-Men shows are, and that they're old school, right? That they're dated. You got Who's the Boss with Magneto, A Different World with Storm, and Divorce Court with Summers vs. Gray. That was so great. And he's like, that's not X-Men. You are my X-Men, Jubilee, he says. And that's why the game is titled X-Men, The Rise of Jubilee. And it was really cool to see that Magneto animation, a title card pop up. And it was really cool to see the player select screen where you had Colossus, Longshot, and Magic. So that was really sick. And they keep teasing Magic in the show, so I can't wait to see where her story's at. And an Easter egg you love to see in X-Men stuff is the Days of Future Past comic cover, but it was cool to see it in 8-bit. And I love the 8-bit theme music version here playing when they're in the game. And it was cool to see the Savage Land, which is a big part of the original series, and her remembering that and seeing Sauron. And they did a nice touch when they defeat Sauron, that he becomes back to his human self. And we got to see who I love so much is Spiral. And she's being worked to the bone, and she's like, he's at it again. This is what you get when you kill tech support. Now, the final level of the game is Asteroid M, which is so great because it's also the final level of this arcade game that we'll actually visually see, which I have played before at an arcade and beat with my friends. Is one of my happiest memories. It's still in so many arcades. You got to check it out. It's so much fun. You get to be a player. And I love that they had that huge nod to that in this episode. And that even Magneto, when he shows up, looks and appears like the Magneto does in that final level. Now, Roberto is about to die in the game, but an extra, which is literally an X, life appears. And Mojo's like, Spiral, I thought I told you to get rid of her. And he's talking, obviously, about Abscissa. Now, she gives Roberto the extra life, Jubilee, and she says, oh, thank goodness, I thought I lost you. So this is when his eyes perk up. And Roberto then freaks out, though, in angry Portuguese, which was great. I'd love for someone to translate that down below, what he said. Now, we see that Abscissa actually saves them and brings them into the Mojo broadcast servers away from the video game ones. And we get to see these cool figures of Gambit and Wolverine, and you even see the image from the second X-Men opening in the original show run on the screen in the background. Now, what's cool about Abscissa is it's the older version of Jubilee, but it's a replica because Mojo needed to test beta version of this game and made all these digital replicas of Jubilee. It's the last one left. Now, what was so brilliant about this was it was voiced by the original voice actress of Jubilee in the original animated run, Allison Court, from the Big Comfy Couch. So that was a great touch by the show team here. And she has a great line where she says to Jubilee, I know part of you wants to hang here. It's nice knowing how every stage ends. No surprises, no twists. It's always the same, but that's not living. That was prime writing there. And Jubilee's like, so Magneto was right? And she's like, a bit, but he's totally wrong about one thing, video games rule. So it had that fun feel to it and that happy feel that Jubilee brings to this show and always has. And then we see Mojo blast through my favorite Easter egg, which is actually seeing the X-Men arcade game. And he's the final boss now. So it was cool to see him in the 8-bit form and them seeing him in game form. And it was really cool to see Abscissa use the fireworks powers in different ways that Jubilee's never done. So that was exciting, and I'm sure Jubilee will work up to that. And we get to see Sunspot finally in battle use his powers. Now, this I was talking about, where this will make Jubilee happy, that he risked all of this for her using the powers. And it was amazing to see Jubilee and Abscissa join forces. That was really awesome. And knowing that it's like a passing of the torch from one voice actress to the next, which I thought was nice. And of course, Mojo has a great line when he's getting defeated. You brats may have canceled me today, but I swear I'll gut you in the reboot. And we get to see Spiral have the last laugh and push him aside, which was nice. And we see Roberto and Jubilee kiss now, and it's literal fireworks. That was a nice touch here. It's something you kind of feel like, too, they did such a creative way to show that happy moment with the fireworks. Something you kind of see in those Spider-Verse films by Sony. So I was impressed by that. People love that stuff, and I thought it was great. So I really loved Motendo here. And then it's crazy because the tone will completely shift, and we go to Lifedeath Part 1, and now Lifedeath Part 2 is not next week, but the following week. So this is just the beginning of the story here with Storm. So we see Storm is with Forge in a cabin, and I like she's wearing the white overalls. That's a cool look for her. And we see Storm's riding horses with Forge, and he's showing her that she has to adapt and be creative to find her powers again. He means that symbolically, but he also means that literally, and how he's making this device that is creatively channeling the radiation power from the Executioner's blast for her to use her powers again. I love, though, that Forge has the picture of the X-Force on his corkboard. Good memories for him. And I also like they show he has these maps on the wall that's trying to keep track of all these times he's been in. Like, they even had 1963 there, so that was a nice touch. But the big twist of the episode is Forge confesses to Storm that he's the one who made the early design of the mutant inhibitor collars. So he's like, look, it was tough times. He was in a really bad state of mind, and this led to Dr. Adler making the official ones, which you saw in the original animated series. But he has a great line, some more great writing here, where he's like, I could live forever, and still my endless imagination could never conceive a thing as perfect as you. And Storm says, a perfect path to your redemption, and he goes, I love you, and she just slaps him. So Storm rides off, pissed now that she was lied to, and she's confronted by this demon. It has the evil voice of Storm. It's the same voice actress, Allison Seeley Smith. Check out my interview with her if you get a chance. But this is the adversary, and it feeds on misery. So it's a nice little cliffhanger for the story. But unfortunately, we have to wait not till next week, but the following week. So I think they're doing that because they got to kind of introduce us to the story and then get away and get the X-Men somewhere to then go back to the story and then set up probably Storm coming to save the day at some point later in the series. So overall, this episode for me is going to get a solid 9. I thought this was another great episode. I am a little biased, I will say, because I love anything Mojo, but honestly, I thought they did such a good job with him here, and it was exciting to see Spiral again, but I love the 90s feel to it and the video game feel, and it just felt so Jubilee, that Motendo section, and it honestly felt like the most similar type of episode to the original animated series to me. So I thought that was really good too. It felt the most 90s. And I really did like what they set up here with Storm and Forge. It's a different approach, but it made sense if you're going to go and split it really into 2 episodes here to do something complete opposite. And that was a smart move, so it doesn't feel too similar. You're like, okay, why don't we do this a separate episode? It's a nice touch on that part. So you got both kind of feels there in a more serious story with Lifedeath Part 1. So it's giving everybody every kind of taste of what they might want in an X-Men animated series. So I really appreciate that. And it left me excited to see what's going to happen with Storm, what's going to happen with Forge. And I can't wait for more. So I'm giving it a 9. Let me know your thoughts down below. I love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment. I try to respond as many as I can. Please hit that subscribe button. I'm trying to get to that 1,000. It'll help my channel so much. You have no idea. I got all X-Men stuff here, and I just did interviews with many of the cast members and more to come. And I'll see you next time.